Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.
Hello and welcome to Getting to Know You. I'm your host, Robert Jaquay. Today's guest is Lisa Heywood-Drake, who is the Youth Employment Advisor for the Youth Employment Service in the town of Colonie. Lisa manages a service which has placed in jobs over 17,000 students since 1984 and has trained close to 1,000 in special skills. Let's go talk to her. Lisa, I want to thank you very much for agreeing to come here today.
I appreciate the invitation very much. Thank you.
Before we get started with details about youth employment, I'd like to give our viewers a chance to know you a little bit better and to have you give us some of your background and how you came to Colonie.
Okay. Actually, I was born and raised in the town of Colonie, so it's very near and dear to my heart. I've spent a lot of time in the Adirondacks also. I actually went to Shaker High School, graduated from there, so it's been really nice for me because I now work at Shaker High School and Colonie Central High School, so I get to cover the whole town, so that's been really nice. I went to college at Bryant College with a Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice. It's now Bryant University.
Okay.
And I did my Master's in Social Work at State University of New York at Albany. So I've been in the area for quite a long time, and I began with youth employment back in 1984.
1984.
1984.
Well, you're well credentialed for the job, obviously. Now, you know that I had a conversation with Mary Burke, the director of the Colonie Youth Bureau, and we talked a little bit about youth employment. But I wanted to be able to get into more detail because it was such a fascinating subject. So, what I really want to do is to basically ask what you do.
Okay. The Youth Employment Service has been around since 1969. It originally started out helping young people find jobs in residence homes, like raking their lawns, babysitting, etc. And as Colonie expanded, of course, our private sector employment base expanded along with it. So Youth Employment Service grew to meet that need in the community. We work with students age 16 to 21. So it's students in a high school age population, beyond high school, perhaps going into full-time work or going into college. And mostly what we do at this point is training and helping young people, connect them to the resources in the community, connect them to websites that are available to help them, give them tips to help them get started in the job market.
Is this something that is common in the area or around the country?
It works differently in all different parts of the country. There are youth bureaus at the county levels, and there are also municipal youth bureaus that provide youth employment services. There are some in the area. There are some in Saratoga, City of Albany. So there's local youth employment offices and many others too. There's folks very often sometimes work out of nonprofit organizations, sometimes work out of municipal organizations. So it's not uncommon. There was an organization called Empire State Organization of Youth Employment Services, which was around for a very long time to kind of help coordinate and get information to all those freestanding organizations across the state. Youth employment is done in a variety of ways. Some directly in schools, like I said, some in counties, some in municipalities. A lot of it depends on the area you're in and what services are needed in that particular area.
So we're not unique, but we certainly, and it's a well-established service in the town.
Yeah, youth employment has been around since 1969.
Oh, wow.
It actually started out helping young people find odd jobs in residence homes, babysitting, those sort of things. And it's, as you know, Colonie has grown and expanded. So the employment service expanded along with it.
Now, real open question,
Okay.
just what do you do as a youth employment advisor? That's your title.
That's my title, yep. Well, several things. I wear a couple of different hats.
Okay.
My job right now is working with students with special needs in a program called the Preparation for Employment Program, which is a pre-employment skills training program. So I work with students from usually freshman year throughout high school, helping them learn everything from A to Z on employment. However, we're not an agency per se that goes to the job sites with the kids. That is done by other agencies. We're kind of a stepping stone. Get them the starting point, the information they need to make good decisions for themselves and to plan ahead.
So these are skills that you're imparting in this when you're working with these youth?
Absolutely. For example, we would teach them how to do a self-assessment of their talents, skills, and abilities, and then match that to a particular job. So I may have a young person get on a website that contains the Occupational Outlook Handbook.
Okay.
And say, okay, I want to be a firefighter, okay? Okay, let's research what talents and skills and abilities and education that takes. Does that match your talents, skills, abilities, and education? Is that a goal that's realistic for you, or do we need to look at another option? I think a lot of us forget when we were teenagers struggling with what am I going to be X years from now, and what's the path to get me there. So we do a little bit on showing them how they can research, but I do a lot of, if you will, the brass tack kind of things. Teaching students the words that will be used on application forms, so all the vocabulary they're going to see and hear. What are legal and illegal questions employers can and cannot ask? You know, what are their rights under the law? What are hours regulations for their particular age group? Making sure they get their working papers, their Social Security, their driver's license or non-driver ID, so they have everything they need for an I-9 form when they start working. And why do they need all that anyway? You know, and helping them understand why they need these things. Another thing I would do with students is help them with, if you will, a script they can use calling an employer. If we think back to when we were kids and all of a sudden the torch was kind of passed from parents set up all your appointments to now you have to do it.
Oh, yes.
But no one ever told you how you were supposed to do that. So we talk about you know, how to introduce yourself when you call somewhere, you know, to ask for the appropriate person, explain why you're calling. One of the things that's always been interesting through the years is I'll have young people call the office and they just start talking. And I have to say, pardon me, who am I speaking with? You know, we kind of make the assumption that kids will pick that information up just from being around, but they don't necessarily. So if they have a script, they can really start out in a much more powerful position, calling an employer, because they sound polished and they sound professional.
Do you do role playing? I mean, do you actually play
Absolutely.
it out? Yeah?
Absolutely. And it depends on the young person. Some young people, you show them the script and they can pick it up just like that. Another young person say, let me try it out here in the office with you where I feel safe and comfortable. And then I purposely try to throw them because as we know, they may not always get a really cooperative person on the other end of the phone or a pleasant person on the phone. And how do they stay polished and professional in that situation? So they don't feel like they get thrown if something gets said on the other end they're not ready for.
Right.
So we do a little bit of role play with that. And sometimes that's a lot of fun for the kids too, because they really start to think about how am I presenting myself as no longer a kid, but as a young job seeker, as an applicant.
Now, are you dealing with an individual, it's one-on-one, or do you deal in a classroom setting, or is it?
In the last few years, it's been mostly one-on-one.
Okay.
I have done classroom work in the past, but what we found is it's much more effective when we're doing one-on-one or small groups. The young people, they get to know me a little bit better, they feel more comfortable, and they'll feel comfortable asking questions they may or may not feel comfortable asking in a larger group. But I have also done large group workshops. I've done several here at the library.
Okay, that's right.
Our Summer Jobs for Youth Job Seeking Skills workshop, where it's kind of an hour, very quick overview of here's all the things you need to know to start out right and do your job search. So it can be presented in that manner too. So it depends on the particular young person what's helpful to them.
One of the things, just to be clear, I want to make sure I'm clear and have our viewers be clear also, because I heard some component that when you're dealing in this capacity, are you simultaneously working for a career path, or are you looking for an immediate job? Are the young people looking for jobs right now?
I would say probably 85% of what I do is immediate, short-term, how to get a part-time job, summer job. Some of the young people we work with, we want them to think a little bit beyond that, so they can think in terms of what do I need to do now to get me to there. So again, it may be individualized depending on the student. The majority of it is the part-time and summer jobs.
Okay.
But to give them an inkling of this is what you need to start to think about to go the next step. Because obviously they work with their school guidance counselors, their teachers. There's a lot of people kind of and a parallel path getting them in the same direction.
All right. Okay. Now, it seems to me, I guess my association with young people working is in the grocery store.
Okay.
That's the most common.
Okay.
But it seems like there's a lot of young people out there in the workforce right now who are not. It's not summertime, and they're looking for, relatively speaking, almost full-time employment, or it's part-time but steady.
Absolutely. A lot of our young people have part-time year-round positions. They may be saving for college, saving for a car, buying clothing, helping their families, supporting their families. And they're looking for, very often they come to me saying, I know the traditional places teenagers work and college students work. What are the places I don't know about? We've had young people say, well, I'd like to get into banking. How do I go about that? What's a stepping stone? Okay. I'd like to work in an office setting. We've had a couple young people who've worked really successfully in local offices for labs because they're interested in that field, but they're not old enough to get into the lab yet.
Okay.
But they can get into the office, find out about the career, get their feet wet a little bit. So a lot of times they'll say, what are the places I would not know about and how can you help me find them?
Age. We're talking about young people. How are we going to categorize them?
Okay.
What age grouping?
We work with young people 16 to 21.
Okay.
So it's traditionally high school age, and then students that are going into full-time employment or students that are college level.
Okay. And they primarily seek you out. You have the association with the school.
Correct.
And those, I imagine, are young people who are directed to you, or is it just because I'm here, I have this time open today, and anyone can walk in?
Well, in the past, we scheduled appointments where kids could come see us in the school. The young people I'm working with right now are on a pass system.
Okay.
I see a certain number of students per year, find out when their free periods are, and a pass gets sent to them. The other young people, they in the past would come to the office. Now, as we talked about before, we have a web site that students can go to.
Yes.
So.
And we're going to put the web address up so we
Okay.
make sure people know it.
Fantastic. And the young people can access the web directly, and it'll give them a lot of the, if you will, tricks of the trade of here's the things that are going to help you prepare yourself to get a job. If we think back again to when we were teenagers, and we have accumulated knowledge now of the year of what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, and when you're just starting out, someone pointing out something to you like this will be helpful to you is incredibly helpful to the students. Because of all the years I've worked with youth employment, I've heard consistently the same questions from each generation of young people. So we kind of know what information they need. So what I did is I put up on our website some of the things that I would traditionally talk with young people about.
Okay.
Right? Part of that would be the script. Okay.
All right.
Another part of that might be, if you will, dressing for success. No, it's not okay to go in your holey jeans and a T-shirt. Okay. And why is that? Okay. And what's going to be acceptable in the business community. And that's been very interesting over the years because what's considered acceptable has changed dramatically over the years.
I was going to say, I remember that if you worked for Disney at one point in time, you had to have a certain haircut. You couldn't have any facial hair. So right now that's opened up. What about earrings and tattoos and all that kind of
A lot of that has depended on the employers through the years. Some of our employers have very strict dress codes and hygiene codes. And we can give young people information about that if the employer chooses to share that. Other employers, depending on the setting, can be a little looser with some of those regulations. And then some people are very strict, here's our dress code. And we talk with young people about sometimes those are in place because of public contact and how you represent the company to the public. Others are safety issues. We've had young people over 18 that work in factory settings or warehouse settings where there are conveyor belts and things like that. And young people will say, well, why does my hair length matter?
Right.
And we talk about what would happen if your hair got caught in a conveyor belt. And all of a sudden the kids, the light bulb goes and they go, okay, now I got it. That makes sense. I don't want to get injured.
Go there.
Yeah, don't want to get injured. So, we sometimes talk about some of their safety issues in the work setting. Again, young people who are 18, 19, 20 who may be working on a construction site. There's reasons for hard hats and steel-toed boots. So we talk a little bit about what some of these regulations, and some of them OSHA regulations, they keep them safe in the workplace. So but you're mentioning earrings and that type of thing. I have several employers right now, it's right in their code. You may not wear earrings. Your hair will be this length. Okay? And they have to sign off on it when they get the job.
Okay.
Understanding.
And that's certainly the employer's right to do that.
Absolutely. And that's their agreement as long as they agree to it.
Now, how do, I mean, I imagine the web is, I know the web would be a nice way for people who are a little bit shy or a little bit reticent to go in and kind of seek this information out. Then there are also the ones who can overcome their insecurities and make a phone call. So can people walk into the youth employment service and just walk up in off the street now?
Sure, and we still have people that walk in off the street.
Okay.
And what I will try to do is provide them with information about community resources, all the types of things that will be able to help them. For example, if a young person doesn't have access to a computer at home, I might send them here to the library, to the teen area.
Okay.
And there's access to computers there. Can you have access at school through a teacher? Okay. If a student is not in school and say is looking for full-time work, okay, I could either allow them to use the computer in my office to access information, or I could get them down to the One Stop Career Center in Albany, which is really for full-time job seekers. Part-time too, but that's really where we bring the kids to at that point.
Now you have a job listing section on the web page.
Correct.
Obviously you try to keep that current. Do you go out and look in the community or in the area? Is it only our community, or are we going all the way into the county?
In general, we're funded to meet the needs of the town of Colonie.
Okay.
Okay. But we do have employers, because this is an area that's so rich with employers that may call us from outside the town of Colonie. This generation of students is much more mobile than even a generation, 10, 15,
right,
20 years ago. So they can get to a lot more places than they used to be able to. But a lot of our listings are going to be Colonie businesses. Of course, we have right around the corner Crossgates Mall.
Yes.
Technically, not Colonie area, but a lot of our young people like to go there and work. And we have some businesses that have multiple offices. We had an employer just a few weeks ago that had hired a young person to work in their office and was moving their office up the Northway. I hooked them up with the Youth Employment Services further up the road.
Okay.
So they have a contact in the community when they could get there.
So how does an employee, let's say we have employers out there
Okay.
who are looking in and saying, gee, I'd like to participate here. Do they contact you directly?
Yep, all they need to do is give me a quick phone call
Okay.
and tell me, basically we take some very basic information. The name and address of the business, the job title, job description, hours, pay scale, any details that employer would like to share. We like to know, do you have a dress code? Does a young person apply online, in person, via email? What is the way it works best for their group? And a contact person, telephone number, fax, email. And whether they'd like that email used by the young people or just used internally.
Right.
Okay. And we also say, because of labor law issues, at what age do you need to hire? And that way, if an employer hasn't hired a young person before, we can also give them the information based on what you're looking for. This would be appropriate.
Now you're providing the information for the young person to actually see the job there, and you're giving some skills on how to do it, but you're not really doing a direct link between the employer and the young person any longer.
Correct.
You used to, but you're not doing that any
Correct.
longer.
We have gone to a different method of doing it. It's all a web-based system. But of course, any of the information that's on the website, if a young person said, I'd like to know more about this particular employer, okay, they can call up and get more detailed information. Or if they're having trouble getting a hold of an employer. Okay, I've had students call, say, I've called, but he's just never in, or I can't. How do I connect with this person? We will problem solve and help them know how do we make that connection. So they're always welcome to do that. And
do you go out into the business community and, are you a known entity, or do you make visits and seek out places of employment, or not really? You really don't have the time to do that?
At this point, we're not doing a lot of job development individually with employers,
Okay.
but we are starting some collaborative efforts with both of the chambers of commerce, Albany Colonie and Colonie, to get information out in their publications so employers know about us and know that we're a free service to them. They can list their job openings with us, and that way this website is available to a very large
Right.
number of people, so they
Right.
can get information out that way.
Get the word out.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're also part of an organization called the Job Placement Consortium. which is a group of, and I forget the exact number at this point, but I think it's about 78 agencies that all do job placement, job training, whatever. It's a wonderful organization because we can really network with each other. And they also send out job listings that they have available, so that all of us working in employment aren't always having to go out and talk with the same employers.
Right.
It makes it difficult on the employers if 6 different organizations are approaching you every day. So this way, the employers can get kind of their net cast in a wider area. We can share information with each other. We can network with each other. If it's a service I can't provide, perhaps I can find an organization that can help that young person.
Okay, so it's nice to connect that way.
Absolutely.
Other agencies, do you work with any other outside agencies?
Yes. I'm saying it that way because depending upon the young person, it could be a vast variety of agencies. Some young people are work ready at the moment they walk in the door, and they need to say, okay, can you help me find X job? Okay. They go to the interview, get the job, we don't ever hear from them again. Okay. Other young people may need some assistance getting where they need to go. Or they may meet guidelines for certain programs. For example, through the One-Stop Career Centers, there are programs through the Workforce Investment Act and TANF, Temporary Assistance to Needy Families, which provide funding streams for young people who meet economic guidelines to help them with employment. So that may be something a young person may also be eligible for.
Now, would they go this one-stop service here? Is that something they would actually go to, or you'd refer them to?
Yep, I can give them information. It's right down here in Albany, right on Central Avenue, and they can go in and apply. And the one-stops are fantastic. They help students if they need a resume, to help them with their job search. They have access to computers. They can help them with very nice paper and envelopes for resumes.
Yes.
Let them know if there's any training programs that they are eligible for, programs they may be eligible for. And it is what it sounds like. It's a one-stop. So if a student needs this service over here, not just employment, they can be hooked into those services too. So we try to make that link if they need it.
Now, I know that we have a teen resource center here in the library, and when we were talking prior to the interview here today, we talked about some connection you have with them, and you know, with the students who go there. So you have outreach programs to groups like that. You also do and I talked with Mary a little bit about this, but there's also one of the workshops you do, or have done anyway, is babysitting.
Yes. The Youth Bureau provides American Red Cross babysitting course. Myself and actually a couple of my colleagues have been trained to teach that course. And it's really nice for young people because it gives them a different perspective on what it means to be a babysitter. It's not go in, sit in front of the TV.
Right.
There's a pretty huge responsibility attached to it. And when the young people have finished that course, they receive a certificate of completion. And then if the young people are going out to look for babysitting jobs, it kind of gives them, if you will, a credential. And they can talk about, here's all the things I know. I've learned basic first aid. I've learned the Heimlich maneuver. I've learned child development from birth to age 6 or 7. I know what children can do. I've learned how to use appropriate discipline. Okay? So it really gives them something to help them market themselves with and feel comfortable as a young person in that situation.
Babysitter, how old would a babysitter, should a babysitter be? I mean, to someone be to consider being a babysitter?
In the laws governing the employment of minors, it says young people need to be at least 14 years old.
Okay. Okay. So, in effect, do you work with younger, you actually work with people who are younger than 16?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, in terms of that training component,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. It's interesting to know people are eager to, obviously money is a driving force, I would say.
Yes, very much so. Kids are very much primary consumers in their society, in our society right here in our neighborhood. They will bring their money back into their own community, as well as, like I said, saving for college, saving for cars, helping families. But as primary consumers, they help the economy of their own area too.
How about the parent side of this? We're
Okay.
talking about the student or the young person, and now we have a parent now. Do you deal directly with parents, or do you deal mostly with the young people?
Majority of the time with the young people. parents are, of course, welcome to call if they have questions or need information, certainly. We're happy to either get them the right resource or provide them with information. Very often parents will call and say, well, how many hours is my child allowed to work at this age?
Okay, so
'Cause they're
basic
trying-
questions.
Yes, you know, they're trying to make sure things are being done properly. Or maybe they have a child working somewhere and things aren't going well. Okay, what are suggestions? What are concerns? Maybe it's a harassment situation, and at 17, a young person has no idea where to turn or what to do. We can let them know, you know, who do you contact? What do you do? How do you follow through with that? The students in our preparation for employment program, the long-term skills building program, more contact with parents there.
Okay.
Because that's a program where we need parental permission for the students to participate.
Okay.
So very often I'll be in touch with the families during meetings, that type of thing. But I will also tell the parents the majority of the work I do is going to be with your child. Not to leave you out of the picture, but the whole idea behind the program is to learn self-advocacy, empowerment. So we want the young person to develop those skills.
Really important stressor. I know that I've had people come, young people come to the library looking for employment, and you know, they're oftentimes with their parent, and it's a nice way to perhaps get them here, but really to build those skills, to have the young person be able to
Absolutely.
speak for themselves, take that brave step, and really talk to you. I know it's a big one, and I know parents want to be helpful. But however, they need to let go, I think.
Absolutely. One of the things I sometimes have talked with parents about is, obviously you're an involved parent, you love your kids, but it may backfire on them if you come with them. And just kind of talking about why that is. Now, a lot of employment is done through networking, and parents can be very helpful with that,
Absolutely.
opening doors for students. But there's a boundary at which the young person needs to take the next step. Because employers don't expect to see mom or dad and applicant. They expect to see applicant.
That's right.
You know, so we've talked sometimes about that, and most parents will really start to laugh and say, oh, you're right, I need to let them do it. And sometimes the kids learn a lot by doing it the first time and it doesn't go so well the first time. If we think back to when we were teenagers, we certainly didn't have all the answers about exactly how to do everything and make it all work. And the other thing that we talk with the parents and the young people about is, you can do everything right and still not be offered the job.
Offered a job, right. And so you give them actually the reality in terms of expectations.
Absolutely.
One of the things we talked about in preparation for today was this concept or this message that we wanted to get to businesses.
Okay.
And I want you to be able to
Talk about that.
talk about that and stress that, because I think it's really important.
The town of Colonie has a tremendously wonderful business community. It's very strong. And it's very committed to the community. And I guess the message I would say to the business community is, we have an incredibly talented pool of young applicants. And they want to know who you are. They want to talk with you. They're interested in learning. They're interested in employment. And we'd love to have more employers that would call and list their openings on the website, so that information is going out to that large pool. We publicize it in the schools.
Okay.
We publicize it at the community center. We publicize it at the library. The information will get out to the young people. The other thing that I guess I would say to the business community, you know, if you're not sure if you can hire a young person, give me a call. We can see what works for your business, and if I'm not the right resource, I'll get you another resource that can help you. Or several resources, so you can kind of have a nice blanket of information out there. And these young people are incredibly talented. I think one of the things I love about working with teenagers, like I said, is they teach me something every day, and they're very bright, they're articulate, they're willing to learn. I think very often teenagers get a bad rap. I really do.
I agree. I agree.
And I think if employers spend a little time training and nurturing this talent, you can't tell how far these kids can go.
Now you're going to be able to obviously take advantage of the chamber connection to help to stimulate the business community to
Absolutely,
this as well.
absolutely. I've been working, you know, preliminarily with both chambers, talking about the potential of doing a, if you will, a youth-friendly job fair in the spring. A lot of adults are used to using job fairs as well as college students. It's not used as much for young people, so we'd like to kind of try that out and see how that works for young people.
I think it's a great idea. Great idea.
You know, it's fairly intimidating for a young person to walk into a room with 40 employers and you have to go up and be the one to talk with them. So what we want to do is line up employers who are willing to kind of take that step to the young person and introduce themselves and say, you know, what type of work are you looking for? And kind of get them used to this, because job fairs are being used all over the place now. It's a very popular way of recruiting employees. So this is a way to kind of give the kids that stepping stone of how do you utilize this. I've already got several employers that are interested in participating.
Great.
Which is great.
Great.
So you know, any employer who'd like to join, we'd love to have them.
Okay, now is there a number, a specific number that people can call you
Sure.
at?
It's 456-3786.
Okay, and also the web page, we were going to put that
Correct.
again. We'll put it up again for
Yeah.
people. We're going to close very shortly. Is there
Okay.
anything that we may have missed? I know there's a lot of things to talk about.
Oh dear.
But I think we covered all the
Mhm.
bases.
Mhm.
Okay.
I'm trying to think if there's anything. I think the key that I'd like to say to the young people too is, if you get on our website, the tips will be there to help you. And if you're saying, okay, I'm reading it, but I'm still not quite sure what I'm supposed to be doing, give me a call. I'm happy to speak with any young person at any point in time, assist them, like I said, get them a resource, or just kind of tell them, how do I go about doing this? And if I don't have the answer right off the top of my head, we'll find it out together.
Terrific.
Yep,
You're
absolutely.
very approachable. I know that.
Okay.
Lisa, thank you so much for joining me today. I really, I love talking to you, and I'm sure our viewers really benefited from our conversation, so thanks.
Well, I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
And thank you for joining me on Getting to Know You. I hope you liked today's show and will join us next week. Until then, have a good one.